In this video, we'll be taking a look at one NBA game happening on May 17, 2026, and providing you with a free team pick and total pick for this game. So 2 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on this one NBA game after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start. If you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. There's something about a Game 7 that just strips everything down to its bones. No more adjustments, no more "we'll get them next time." Just pure survival basketball under the brightest lights the playoffs can offer. And this one carries a layer of storytelling that honestly makes it feel almost cinematic. The Detroit Pistons, a franchise that spent years being the butt of every joke in the league, went out and finished this regular season with a 60-22 record. That's their first 60-win campaign since the legendary 2005-06 squad, and if you know your Pistons history, you understand how much weight that comparison carries in that city. J.B. Bickerstaff won Coach of the Year this season, and it wasn't some feel-good narrative award either. He built the second-best defense in the entire NBA from scratch and instilled a mentality in that locker room that simply does not crack when the stakes get higher. The pattern of this series tells you a lot if you're paying attention. Detroit took care of business at home in Games 1 and 2, winning 111-101 and 107-97. Cleveland responded with authority on their own floor in Games 3 and 4. Then things got strange. The Cavaliers went into Little Caesars Arena and stole Game 5 in overtime, clawing back from a 15-point deficit in a game that genuinely had no business going Cleveland's way. For 4 straight games, the home team won, and then the visitors started flipping the script. Here's where the momentum conversation gets genuinely fascinating, though. Game 6 was in Cleveland. The Cavaliers had every single thing going for them. Home crowd, a 3-2 series lead, a chance to close it out and punch their ticket to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since 2018. And Detroit walked in there and absolutely annihilated them, 115-94. That wasn't just a loss for Cleveland. That was a statement. Donovan Mitchell, who's been averaging over 28 points per game in this series, went 6 for 20 from the field. Let that sink in for a second. James Harden, the veteran presence Cleveland brought in from the Clippers at the trade deadline back in February, put up 23 points but coughed up 8 turnovers. The Cavaliers as a team turned it over 20 times. 20 possessions where they didn't even get a shot off. You can't just wipe that kind of performance from your memory 2 days before a do-or-die game on the road. Turnovers in elimination settings aren't random carelessness. They're a symptom of defensive pressure getting under your skin and rattling your decision-making when it matters most. Detroit knows exactly how to create that kind of chaos, and they've been doing it all year long. Here's the thing, though. Detroit didn't just win Game 6 because Cleveland fell apart. The Pistons got a massive injection of energy from the return of Duncan Robinson, who missed Game 5 with lower back soreness. Robinson came back and immediately caught fire, going 4 for 7 from deep for 14 points. That matters way more than the box score suggests, because Detroit has been one of the weaker perimeter shooting teams all season. When Robinson is out there, it opens up driving lanes for Cade Cunningham and gives Jalen Duren more room to go to work down low. The whole offense breathes differently with that spacing. Duren's arc in this series alone could honestly be its own movie. After getting benched for the entire fourth quarter and overtime in the Game 5 loss, the young center came out in Game 6 and dropped 15 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 blocks. That's not a guy who's shrinking. That's a guy who's growing into the moment right in front of us. Paul Reed off the bench poured in 17 points on 7 of 9 shooting, and Detroit's reserves collectively outscored Cleveland's bench 48-19. Let me say that again. 48-19. And that bench depth gap has been lurking throughout this entire series, and it exploded at the worst possible time for the Cavaliers. Dennis Jenkins quietly contributed 15 points and has honestly been one of the more reliable young guards in this entire postseason. Ausar Thompson, before fouling out, put together a stat line of 10 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 steals while making life absolutely miserable for Cleveland's ball handlers with his length and relentless physicality. You might push back and say Cleveland won 3 straight before Game 6, so they clearly have the talent. And that's fair, they do. Evan Mobley, last season's Defensive Player of the Year, is a matchup problem for anyone in this league. Mitchell can go nuclear on any given night, and his 43-point eruption in Game 4 is proof of that. But here's the flip side nobody wants to talk about. 39 of those 43 points came in the second half, which means he was virtually invisible in the first half with just 4 points on 1 of 8 shooting. That kind of volatility should terrify you if you're banking on Cleveland in a Game 7 on somebody else's floor. When Mitchell is cooking, the Cavaliers look unbeatable. When he's off, and Game 6 painted a vivid picture of what that looks like, this team doesn't have a reliable backup engine to compensate. Harden's turnover issues and pressure spots aren't exactly new territory for anyone who's followed his career closely. Dennis Schroeder went scoreless in Game 6 on 0 for 4 shooting. Outside of Max Strus, who was magnificent in Game 5 with 20 points on 6 of 8 from 3, Cleveland's supporting cast has been wildly inconsistent all series. The Cavaliers are walking into Little Caesars Arena on Sunday, and that building has been absolutely rocking during these playoffs. This is a fan base that has been starving for this kind of relevance for almost 2 decades. The Pistons hadn't won a playoff series in 18 years before knocking off Orlando in the first round, and now they're one single game away from the Eastern Conference Finals. You think that building won't be the loudest arena in basketball on Sunday night? Detroit's defensive identity is tailor-made for a Game 7 environment where every possession feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. Cunningham has averaged over 25 points per game in this series while dishing out more than 8 assists, and he showed in his 39-point Game 5 performance that the biggest moments don't intimidate him one bit. The Cavaliers, meanwhile, are carrying the fresh psychological scar of a 21-point beatdown on their own home floor. That's the kind of loss that lingers, especially when you have to go into a hostile environment 2 days later with your entire season hanging in the balance. Cleveland hasn't won a road game in this series outside of that overtime miracle in Game 5, and even that required one of the more improbable comebacks you'll see in any playoff year. Kenny Atkinson himself said before Game 6 that losing and having to travel to Detroit for Game 7 would create enormous pressure on his group. Well, here we are. That's exactly the scenario playing out. There's also a historical echo worth noting. The Pistons themselves have referenced their 2005-06 team that rallied from a 3-2 deficit against Cleveland to reach the Eastern Conference Finals. History loves a good sequel, and this franchise clearly believes it's writing one. As our first pick for this matchup, the Detroit Pistons to cover the spread as home favorites is our full game side pick. This series has given us a genuinely telling sample size when it comes to combined scoring. Game 1 finished with 212 total points. Game 2 came in at just 204. Game 3 spiked to 225. Game 4 settled at 215. Game 5 hit 230, but that number is misleading because it went to overtime, so the regulation total was actually closer to 210. And Game 6, despite one team putting up 115, only produced 209 combined because Cleveland's offense was completely broken. Strip away the overtime outlier and the regulation totals in this series have consistently hovered in that 204 to 215 range. That's not a fluke or a coincidence. That's a direct reflection of what happens when two defensively minded teams collide in a playoff series where both coaching staffs have had weeks to study every tendency. Detroit ran the second best defense in the entire league this regular season. That doesn't magically evaporate in a Game 7. If anything, it gets dialed up even further. Bickerstaff's coaching staff has 6 full games of film on every single action Cleveland wants to run. Every trigger, every set, every pet play. The Pistons are going to come out with a defensive game plan that's been refined down to the finest possible detail. Alsar Thompson's on-ball defense, Duran's rim protection, the way Detroit funnels everything into help side coverage, it all combines to make scoring feel like an absolute chore for opposing offenses. The Cavaliers shot 39% from the field in Game 6. Mitchell was 6 for 20. The team committed 20 turnovers. You're asking that same group to travel to one of the loudest arenas in the postseason and somehow find their rhythm. That's a tall order. Game 7s are inherently lower scoring affairs, and honestly, that's not just something analysts say to fill airtime. The pressure tightens rotations. Coaches get conservative with their play calling. Every single possession carries the weight of an entire season, and both teams feel that weight in their legs and in their shot selection. After 6 games of adjustments and counter-adjustments, neither coaching staff is going to be surprised by anything the other throws at them. That means fewer easy baskets, fewer open looks, and more contested, grinding, half-court possessions where execution and composure matter more than raw talent. Cleveland's bench situation compounds everything. When your reserves get outscored 48-19, like they did in Game 6, your starters are forced to shoulder heavier minute loads. That means fatigue creeping in during the fourth quarter. Fatigue means less efficient shot making down the stretch when every bucket counts the most. Detroit wants to play at their pace. They want to grind it out in the half court, force you to execute against a set defense, and make every single point feel earned. Cleveland prefers to push and play faster, but when Detroit's defense is fully engaged, and you can absolutely bet on it being engaged in a Game 7 at home, that transition game just dries up. The Cavaliers managed just 8 fast break points in Game 6. In the half court against Detroit's length and physicality, scoring opportunities get scarce in a hurry. Free throw shooting is another piece of this puzzle. Cleveland went 22 of 30 from the line in Game 6, and free throw shooting tends to tighten up even further in elimination games when the pressure is at its absolute peak. The most telling pattern in the entire series is honestly right there in the scoreboard. The Pistons have been comfortable winning games in the low 100s all season long. That's who they are at their core. They don't need 120 to feel good about themselves. They just need to hold you under 105 and execute enough on their end to create separation. Games 1 and 2, both Detroit wins at home, produced totals of 212 and 204. Game 6, their most dominant win of the series, came in at 209. There's a clear, undeniable trend here. When Detroit is dictating terms, when they're controlling the pace and the physicality, the combined scoring stays suppressed. A Game 7 at home, with everything on the line, with a roster and coaching philosophy built to win ugly when necessary, feels like the perfect recipe for one more gritty, hard-fought, low-scoring battle where defense and composure trump everything else. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.